My apologies. Hello, my name is Ana Rodriguez, and we have a great partnership with GEM, and they are presenting tips of submitting a competitive STEM application, and their applications opens in early July. And Tim is going to talk to you more about that in a minute. My name is Ana Rodriguez. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. I have a master's and doctorate degree from UMass Amherst. I joined SHIP in 2019. Which was a long time ago. My title is the Higher Education and Graduate Program Manager. And please take a picture of this slide, as that is my email address at SHIP. That is my cell phone number that is right there, and my LinkedIn address. I would love to connect with all of you. And thank you all for being here. Please do know that this event is going to provide you all the practical tips on how to prepare and submit a competitive GEM application. You will learn what reviewers often look for, including how to strengthen key components of the application package. This session also introduces funding opportunities that can help you pursue a fully funded advanced degree in STEM. Let me introduce to you my great partner. We have a great relationship with GEM, and this is Tim Thompson, who is the Innovation Programs Manager at the National GEM Consortium, or GEM. He leads the design and execution of GEM's flagship Grad Labs and related recruitment and engagement initiatives that connect prospective graduate students with leading research universities and industry partners. In this role, Tim has worked closely with faculty and administrators across GEM member universities to support researchers navigating early-stage commercialization and translational research pathways. Within his first year of partnering with federal agencies, he supported GEM-affiliated researchers in securing $1.1 million in federal funding to advance innovations from the laboratory towards the marketplace. Tim also plays a key role in supporting the operational execution of GEM's national programs, coordinating partnerships, managing program logistics, and aligning stakeholders to ensure scalable, high-impact delivery. Drawing on his background in public policy and his collaborative leadership style, he strengthens institutional partnerships that advance GEM's mission to develop the next generation of leaders in engineering and applied science. So thank you, Tim, for being here, giving us your time. And now I will stop sharing my slides. And the floor is back to you. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the kind words. It's almost as if I wrote that intro myself. Um, Welcome everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, based on where you all are from. Well, first, can I get a thumbs up if the camera's on? Thumbs up, some smiles. Okay, excellent. Um, Good afternoon, good evening. Again, my name is Tim Thompson, Innovation Programs Manager for the National GEM Consortium, and it's part of my job to ensure that each of you understand the value of a free advanced degree in STEM. And so many of you, this may be your first time learning about GEM. And so we're here to talk about the GEM application. So I'll take a second just to let you know that GEM is a fellowship program or a nonprofit that provides fellowships for students pursuing an advanced degree in STEM. So we have over 130 universities that make up our consortium and over 70 employer organizations that provide summer internships for our students. So every GEM fellow goes to school for free. All right. Always important for me to get that out at the very beginning of our conversation. Also wanted to take some time for you all to complete our prospect form. So if you haven't already, because I'm seeing some familiar names and faces, take a moment, scan this QR code. It'll take 2 seconds to complete it because it's just asking for your name and your email. This will add you to our list of students that are interested in the fellowship, and you'll begin receiving information regarding the application cycle that's opening July 1st. So I promise we won't spam you. We're just sending you vital information. All right. So I'm going to push forward. You'll have an opportunity to scan this again if you haven't just now. Well, I have the same thing at the end of the presentation. So for the third time, Tim Thompson, Innovation Programs Manager for GEM, New York City native by way of the Bronx, New York, and I received my master's in public administration from Cornell University. So I'm very excited to have this conversation with you to talk about the best practices of pursuing a GEM fellowship, or well, securing the app, well, submitting a competitive application, because I'm someone who has student loans. So essentially, we're here to have a conversation about how to not be like me. I'm gonna jump into the overview just because we have a lot to talk about today. So just as an overview. We're gonna talk about the basics very briefly. Um, helping you determine whether you want to, or how to go about choosing which type of degree you want, and then a more in-depth conversation around the thought process of choosing your specific academic program. Then we'll jump into the GEM application itself to talk about the key areas that you want to focus on when submitting that application, giving you what to focus on, specifically what the reviewers are looking for. And then when we're done talking about the fellowship application itself, we'll talk about GEM so you understand how funding work and you'll have a more concrete understanding of the fellowship itself. So let's jump right into, let's remove this. There we go. Let's jump right into the degree, or how to go about your degree, or in the program. So we're going to start off with the master's and PhD. And again, many of you may have a concrete understanding of which degree you want to go for. But for the folks that are on the call, we're still going to have this conversation to make sure we're all on the same page. So starting off with the master's degree, this is typically unless you're an accelerated program, this is typically a 2-year program that is ideal for folks that are looking for professional advancement and skill building. And so for folks that don't want to hit a plateau professionally, you don't want to be at your workplace and you can't apply for the next position or have the skills for your leadership perhaps, a promotion only because you don't have a graduate education. So the master's degree is ideal for folks that want that upward mobility professionally. Now, moving on to the PhD, this is typically between 4 and 7 years, and you still receive the perks of the master's degree. So you still get that career advancement opportunities, but this is for folks that want to specialize on a specific area of study. You may be passionate, you may want to be a leader in a specific field of research, and so this is when you'll go to PhD route. And so many of you probably already have a strong understanding of which degree you want to go for. But if you don't and you have more questions towards the end, I strongly encourage you to bring it up then. So now that you know what type of degree you want to go for, let's talk about the things you want to take into consideration before choosing which type of program to pursue within that degree. So first thing you want to do is assess your interests. All right. What are you passionate about? You want to sit down and think about what you want to spend the most amount of time studying for. What's driving your passions? And what do you ultimately want to achieve by way of those passions? What goals do you ultimately want to achieve? And so once you identify what you're passionate about, then you want to research the different programs and specializations you're interested in, because your passions need to align with the specialized program that you're getting. So you may be interested in biomedical, and you may be interested in medicine. And so you might be interested in going into biomedical engineering, for example. There are many different fields, focuses within the health field that you can look into. And so next, you're going to want to go into evaluating your program's reputation and faculty. All right. So once you've identified the programs that you're interested in, you're going to want to do additional homework to see what the reputation of is of that program, what type of research is coming out of that program, what are the faculty working on, okay? This is essentially confirming if that program is a good fit for you. Moving on to considering program location and resources. This is very important. And I emphasize this because many of us believe that because we went through our undergraduate program, that we have a concrete understanding of the type of environment we're in. And I gotta admit that I was kind of in shock when I went to grad school because I'm from New York City and I went to school in upstate New York, but there it was a completely different atmosphere and environment in upstate New York, given that it's a lot more rural than New York City. So I still experienced culture shock, even though I was going to graduate school. And so you want to take location into consideration, but also the different resources, especially as students in STEM. Does the university and the program that you're interested in have the proper facilities for you to conduct your research? So these are the things you want to take into consideration. Moving down, review admissions requirements. Again, we've been through undergrad. When it's time to go to graduate school, you have to take into consideration the admissions requirements because they vary specifically from program to program, or they vary drastically from program to program. So you're going to want to take a close look at the different requirements of the different degree of program, academic programs, especially as it pertains to deadlines. This is an area where students or fellows typically trip up because they may be interested in seven different programs, but they don't have an organized list of the different deadlines and requirements. And so definitely going to want to take that into consideration. Moving down, we have seek advice from mentors and professionals. At GEM, we like to specify you want that mentor to be someone who is an expert in your field. So perhaps a faculty member or someone who has a PhD in your area of interest. All right, these are the folks that you're going to want to seek advice from, and also the folks that oversee the career centers at your universities. You definitely want to be mindful of taking advantage of the resources that you already have access to. Moving down, attend information sessions. Each of you are doing a great job at this right now. All right. First, you're members of you're members of SHIP. So you're already part of a robust STEM ecosystem. All right. And so now you're here having a conversation with me about tips on submitting a competitive application. You're already doing these. You're already taking part in information sessions and webinars. So continue doing the work that you're already doing. And then review graduate employment outcomes. This is very important. So once you identify the programs that you're interested in, research their alumni, research their recent graduates, see what the rate is of students that graduate and how long it takes them to secure employment. All right, you want to have a firm understanding of what alumni are engaging in, especially after they graduate. So now the gym application, all right? There are 12 steps to the gym application, and we're here to we're going to focus on four of them, all right? Because these are the four things that the reviewers are looking for within the application process itself. And one thing I want to share before we talk about the four pieces, I want to give you all the inside scoop. And we'll talk a little bit about this further down in the presentation, but within the GEM application process, we have employer companies that review applications and they determine who receives the fellowship. All right. And so we want you to start thinking from the perspective of the employer companies that are reviewing the application. All right. Because they're the ones that are going to determine who receives the fellowship, and that's gonna tie into the internship, but I don't want to overwhelm you too much. So let's get back to focusing on the application process itself. We're gonna talk about the resume, research history, letters of recommendation, and a statement of purpose. Because that's what you're gonna want to focus on. So graduate school, or excuse me,
Before you
not
continue,
grad.
Tim, I want to
Yep.
make sure that if you're still in school and you have the opportunity to have an internship prior to this internship from GEM, that is super helpful for you to get a leg up for this application. So please take all the advantages of any internship that you can get.
Yep. Thank you, Anna. That's a really good point. And just to add on to that, that's very important that internship experience even before joining the gym fellowship because you're demonstrating to the employers what you're already capable of. So you already have your academic experience and your coursework, but then you have your internship experience. It makes you that much more competitive, and that'll be outlined on a resume. And so the resume is essentially a document where you list your professional history, your skills, your work history. And just looking at this resume that we have here, one thing I want to highlight, and this is simple advice, but it's very honest advice, is that this resume is very simple, clean, and easy to look at. All right. As we talk about applying for the gym fellowship, there's over 4,000 applications, and there's going to be about 80 faculty and employers reviewing or judging the applications before they go on specifically to the employers to choose from. And so you're going to have folks, this isn't going through AI. You have people with human eyes reading these applications and getting tired along the way. You want someone to look at your resume and to quickly be able to identify the value that you can bring to the opportunity you're applying to. So that's advice that's relevant to the fellowship as well as applying to universities. All right. So you're definitely going to want to develop a professional looking resume. All right. List only applicable information on your resume. All right. So this is going to be applicable coursework that you've been through. All right. Applicable research for those who have done research, but you're only going to mention research briefly. We'll talk a bit about that. And obviously work history, so internships, etc. Always bold quantitative data. So if you have your GPA listed on the resume, if you have quantitative achievements, whether it's through research or through projects that you've worked on that you're proud of, bold those on your resume so we could quickly identify those data points. It's very important, very important. Now, moving down to the length, this is something that's often debated if a resume should be one page, if a resume should be two pages. As we're talking about applying for a fellowship opportunity, again, this is not going through AI. These are humans that are reading these resumes. You definitely are going to want a one pager. All right. One clean cut, comprehensive resume. Now, for the folks here, oh, yes, Anna. I
No,
saw you.
and keep it on one page because the attention span, if they're reviewing a gazillion resumes, and Tim can tell us how many they review. If you keep it to one page and the most important things that you have done, that is better. So please make sure that you tweak your resume for those different people that are reviewing. And Tim, can you tell us how many people, how many a company, for example, reviews how many resumes?
So what happens, the way it works is there's going to be 4,000 applications for the around 4,000 applications in the gym fellows for the fellowship. And so and I'll talk about this a little bit in the I believe the next slide. Students have to select the employers that they're most interested in. And so if that's Apple, Apple may have 700 applicants to review. All right. And so, and they're going based off of, okay, so now I'm giving you some real inside information. Jim has a judging process. And so faculty employers will judge your resume, judge your application, and then that goes to the employers to choose from. So it's really up to the folks reviewing, which are largely going to be employers and faculty members. But you want to make this attractive to the employers because they're ultimately the ones that are going to select you. Okay. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that, and I could go more in depth during the Q&A portion. So jumping back to the resume slide, for the folks on the call who have done research, this is when you will use a CV. All right, this is when you use a CV because a CV is a document that outlines your academic accomplishments, your research, your publications, grants that you've received. All right. And so this is also why you don't have a two-page resume because oftentimes your research is what you really want to expand on, and some folks will still put that in their resume. No, this is when we move it over to the CV. Many of you may have heard this before, but we still need to emphasize it because we still see students that may make this mistake. Again, this is tips on submitting competitive applications. Um, and then the last piece is to create different resumes for different purposes. This, don't let that overwhelm you. Don't let that overwhelm you. This means tailor your resume for the opportunity that you're applying to. Right now, we're talking about fellowships. You're going to want to tailor the resume that you submit for the fellowship. But when you're applying to the universities, you're going to want to tweak portions of your resume and your experience to fit the needs of the program that you're applying to. All right. These are things that this is when you tag in those mentors that we talked about, folks that are experts in the field, your career officers on how to go about tailoring your resume. So we're gonna move on. So part of the application process is you have to, as I mentioned, identify at least three companies that you're interested in interning with, who you would like to review your application. All right. So these are just this is a bunch of the not all of them, but a bunch of the employers that we have. All right. There's over 70 of them. We really want you to focus on the employers that fit with your align with your field of study. All right. So if you're interested in aerospace, if your research is what you want to study is in aerospace, but you want to work for Apple, that's not a perfect alignment. You probably need to consider NASA. All right. This is the area where students run into mistakes all the time because there are companies that they recognize and are very passionate about. And I use Apple because most of us have iPhones. And so you're gonna want to focus on the companies that align with your field of study because they're the ones that are going to provide that summer internship opportunity and ensure that you have the gym fellowship. Same case goes for GEM universities. There's way too many universities to put them on the screen. So we have over 130 of the top over 130 of the top STEM universities that are GEM members. I would even go as far to bet that several of you on the call are currently students at GEM universities. So another component of the application is you have to select three universities that you're interested in applying to. This does not confirm that you've applied to that university. It just lets the reviewers for GEM know the schools that you're interested in going to. Okay. This is available to both the master's and PhD students. But the real true key point that I want you all to walk away with is that 90% of GEM universities offer fee waivers. And so when you apply to a university, you want to reach out to them in the department you're applying to and say, hey, I'm applying for a gym fellowship. Do you offer a fee waiver? There's a 90% chance that you'll get a yes. Last piece as it pertains to the employees in the universities is that if you, because I'm sure many of you are like, okay, how can I confirm who is a gym university and who are the employer companies? Once you start the application, which opens on July 1st, you'll get access to each of them. So you could begin doing your research. The goal for having this conversation this early, well, close to when the application cycle opens, is so that you have enough time to do the homework on which programs to consider, which companies should you consider? All right, this is for us to have a proactive conversation and help you draft that competitive application early. All right, now moving on to the statement of purpose. All right, this is a 1 or 2 page document that where you demonstrate your value proposition to the opportunity that you're applying to. In this case, it's for the fellowship. For the universities, that's going to be specific to the program that you're applying to. And so within that document, you want to demonstrate what your goals are, what you're passionate about, and what you ultimately hope to achieve. All right. Then you want to demonstrate how your experiences have prepped you to achieve prepped you for these goals. So this is where you outline this is similar to what we talked about with the resume. This is where you go more in depth with your your relevant academic experiences, your internship experience, whatever is most relevant to the opportunity. All right. And you want to customize that to the opportunity you're applying for. I'm going to emphasize this time and time again. When it comes to the resume and the statement of purpose, you are tailoring these documents for the opportunities that you're applying for. So the application is not what's challenging. It's the research that goes into the application. It's the research that goes into identify, okay, what is this degree program looking for? What's most relevant for that degree program? What is the GEM fellowship interested in? Or the companies that I'm interested in for the GEM fellowship. This is the type of strategy that goes into submitting a competitive application. It's not the application itself, it's the research that goes into these applications. Okay. So tips for the statement of purpose. Be concise. All right. We're starting to see patterns. You want to be concise with the resume. You absolutely want to be concise with the statement of purpose. Be honest about your deficiencies, but don't belabor. This means do not spend several paragraphs talking about your challenges. State your challenge, move on. All right. Write, rewrite, have others edit. By others, we mean experts in the field. This is going to be your faculty, folks with PhDs in your field, or the folks at your career service centers. All right. Customize. Anytime you see customize, that means tailor these documents. Yes, Anna. Oh, you're muted.
I wanted to ask, what if I write my statement of purpose and then I put it through Chat GPT or any kind of AI tool? Are those checked by the universities or by the industries?
Yes. Well, the universities are the universities are for sure checking to see if these are written by AI. And for the fellowship. Now, I'm not gonna go say don't use AI for research purposes. I'm not gonna because that is just this is unrealistic at this stage. But you definitely want to be mindful of anything you submit, even emails, in terms of using artificial intelligence, because there's so many ways or there are patterns within AI. And I'm sure you all have seen them when working with your own peers, when they'll send you an email and it's clear as day that it was written by AI. So definitely something you want to be very mindful of, applying for opportunities, and then once you start your internship or working in school. So thank you for that, Anna. All right, letters of recommendation. All right, this is very important. So who do you ask? At Jim? First folks we say faculty, 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 faculty. Your faculty is who you want to ask to write your letters of recommendation because they can best speak to your academic excellence. You've been in school for 4 years or at least 4 years by the time, or you'll be done by, well, 4 years approximately by the time you submit the application. So they could best speak to your skill set. Oftentimes when I'm speaking with students, they'll say, well, I have the president of the university writing a letter of recommendation for me, and that's great. That's great. But the president of the university cannot speak to your skill set specifically. They could just say you're a standout amongst your peers, which is cool, but it does not speak to your skill set. All right. So you want to identify the faculty, and for the folks who aren't who may be returning to, because we often have students that graduate undergrad and go work in the field and return. This is when your employers would be great, or folks at your professional organization, your employer, to with PhDs to write your letters of recommendation. All right. So we emphasize don't ask your friends, coaches, or even religious leaders. We've seen that a lot. And so unless they have a PhD in the field that you're interested in, all right. Excuse me. Generic letters versus glowing letters. This is so important. And I'm not sure if any of you have ever served on search committees, hiring committees, if you've had any sort of experience like that. If only you had a chance to see how many times recommenders are very honest about the folks that they submit their letters for. And so if your recommender is not enthusiastic about writing a letter of recommendation for you, that's not who you want to go with. All right. I'm gonna emphasize that again. All right. Jumping into how to ask for that letter of recommendation, you want to ask before submitting the individual's name or contact information. That's very specific to the GEM Fellowship application, because when you start the application, it's going to ask for who your recommender's name and their email. And so if you put their information in, they're going to reach out to the system is going to reach out to your recommender. It would be nice if you had asked them already to write your recommendation. All right, because that could definitely influence how they write your recommendation. So you want it to be professional and ideally in person. All right. Coordinate a meeting with the person that you're interested in writing a letter of recommendation with. But if you can't, schedule a Zoom call. Schedule a Zoom call, make a direct ask, or schedule a phone call. Make that direct ask. All right. It's gonna be similar to, well, you asking, would you be able to write me a strong letter of recommendation? We're being very direct. You are directly asking for a strong letter of recommendation. And we say ideally in person because you can feel the vibe in the room if they're hesitant on saying yes to writing you a strong letter of recommendation. Some of you, yes, Anna.
Is it a good idea for if I am asking you, for example, Tim, for me to say, hey, can you write a strong letter of recommendation and here are some highlights of what I've done? Because maybe you're not aware of what I have done. So
hmm
is it a good idea to do that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's a really good point because you may have faculty who you haven't been in their class for a year or they need a refresher. So that's a really good point, Anna. So you definitely want to bring to that conversation your resume. You definitely want to give that faculty the opportunity to refresh their mind on your accomplishments and even see some of the other things that you worked on. They might not be aware of your internship experience, and they may be able to help you write a more compelling statement of purpose. And so that's a really good point, Anna. Definitely bring those documents to the meeting. And if you're on this call and you're thinking to yourself, well, you're not aware of any of these faculty members, but you have another semester coming up. If you're a rising senior, then this is when you start manifesting those relationships. All right, this is when you start. You definitely want to be very intentional about asking for that letter of recommendation and manifesting those relationships. So yeah, like I said, if there's even hesitation in the recommendation, get out. All right. I know students that have asked me to write letters of recommendation for them, and I hesitated on the yes, and still wrote them a nice one, but I digress. So, how do you ensure you receive a strong letter of recommendation? Be notable in the class. You all know what that looks like. Sit in the front, ask questions, be a standout. All right. Make sure you're engaging. But the one of the big strategies is read their publications. Read your faculty members' publications and have meaningful conversations with them about your publications. It shows the how intentional you are about research. It shows how intentional you are, and that's just good. It's good practice from a relationship building standpoint. All right, if you're noticeable in the course and you read the publications, it makes it very easy for when it's time for you to ask them to be your mentor. And if you're building that meaningful relationship with your faculty, I promise you that more often than not, that relationship will extend far beyond a letter of recommendation. All right, at some point you'll be colleagues. And so these are really strong tips. So for the mechanics, you want to confirm that you have that letter of recommendation or confirm the ask at least a month before the deadline. So the GEM debt application deadline is always going to be the second Friday in November. All right, so you're going to want to ask the second week of October. But we all on this call are having a conversation in what it's still May. And so you have a lead for folks who already know the faculty that they're going to reach out to. You could start engaging them over the summertime, to be quite honest with you. You have a strong pulse on how to best navigate the folks that you already have an idea of reaching out to. So we're here again to have an early conversation about piecing together these competitive applications and all the steps that go into it. Okay. Provide your recommender with your application material. So this is also specific to the fellowship, but very relevant to when you apply to a university. Any documents that they'll need for your application, you want to make sure you get that information to them early. All right. And then check to see if their letter was uploaded. That's also very specific to the GEM Fellowship. There's students that have recommenders that thought that they uploaded a document, but it didn't upload properly. So it's on you to ensure that that uploaded, to follow up with them to ensure that it was submitted. All right. Okay. So we have talked about navigating the application process and what to focus on. All right. Each of those topics could have been its own presentation. Each of those topics could have been an hour conversation itself. So it is on you to take those tips and be proactive in seeking support and start building out your resume or making updates to the resume and crack open the gym application one January 1st when it opens. All right. We're having a conversation about being proactive. All right, but now we're going to shift the conversation to talking about the fellowship itself. All right, so we're here to talk about a fellowship program that has been around for the past 50 years and ensure that students with the fellowship went to school for free. All right, so the GEM Fellowship is an employer selected and university funded program where the fellows are recruited by over the top 30 STEM universities with paid summer internships from one of our 70 employee members, full graduate tuition and fees, plus a guaranteed minimum stipend. So essentially, as a gym fellow, you are being paid to go to school for free. Now, this opportunity is available to both master's and PhD level students. So we're going to start with masters. There's a minimum $8,000 stipend for the 2 years that you'll spend in your master's program with full tuition and fees and two paid summer internship opportunities. All right. So if you're a master's student with a gym fellowship, you've already secured funding for 2 summers, and that opportunity oftentimes turns into a full-time opportunity, a full-time offer. Now, for the PhD student, you receive a minimum of $16,000. In that first year is going to be covered by GEM, but the university steps in and commits to an additional 2 to 5 years in funding. That's very important given the turbulent times with federal funding. All right, so these are the types of fellowships you're going to want to secure given everything that's going on in the world. This also comes with full tuition and fees with one paid summer internship opportunity. So you're only required to do one for PhD and required to do two for the master's programs. Something I want to emphasize. These stipends are minimums. So for PhD, you see minimum $16,000. That's not necessarily going to be the case. If you're a student at University of Pennsylvania, their stipend for their students is $48,000 a year. So if you're a GEM fellow at University of Pennsylvania, you're going to receive $48,000 because they're committed to paying you the minimum of what the students receive at that. So they're committed to matching that stipend for you. All right. So don't think if you get a GEM fellowship, you're only going to get 8,000 as a master's or 16,000 as a PhD. This is part of the research that goes into looking into the programs you're interested in. What's the minimum stipend at that program for that program? So a little bit about the internship requirements. Your
Hold
internship
on,
will,
Tim, before you continue, I have a question in the chat.
yes,
Someone asked, I graduated from undergrad December 2025. Would I apply to graduate schools for fall 27 admission?
yes, yes, fall 27 admission. Yep, yep. Yep,
Thank
it will be, yep. So for because the application opens this July, it closes in fall 2026 of November. So you wouldn't start school until that fall of 2027. Excellent question. So and we'll get into talking about that because now we're starting to dip into the ins and outs of the GEM fellowship itself. So jumping back into the internship requirements, the internship begins the summer immediately after your application. So again, it'll you for this cycle you would apply in November of 2026, which means you would start your internship that summer of 2027. Reminder, master's students are required to complete 2 summer internships, and PhD students are required to complete one. All interns are evaluated as full-time employees. So this means you will be treated and paid for paid like a full-time employee. All right. Employers also pay internship salary and travel. So if you have to relocate to for your internship, they'll cover that as well. Now, we understand that the GEM fellowship is a prestigious fellowship and that there are oftentimes students that are exceptional but didn't receive the fellowship. So we have systems in place to support fellows who don't receive their summer internship, but they can still secure a GEM fellowship. So I'll talk about each different flavor of the fellowship so you can understand how it works. And we're going to start with the GEM Employer Fellow because these are the students that receive a summer internship. They receive that minimum stipend and then full tuition and fees. Now, the Gym Associate Fellow is a fellow who is still exceptional, but just wasn't selected for an internship. But the university said, hey, although they're not receiving that internship, we're still enthusiastic about this student and we'll cover we'll fully fund this student. And so that student, the Gym Associate Fellow, receives the stipend, full tuition and fees. And then there's a Jim University fellow. This is a master's student who wasn't selected for an internship. They're not going to receive a stipend, but they receive full tuition and fees. So no matter what type of fellowship you receive, at the very least, you're still going to school for free.
And you are all winners here. If you're here in this event, you're all winners. So don't let this opportunity get away from you. You can apply and you can get the maximum, the medium, or the lowest, but still is a win. So don't forget that.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And if you could remind me to get back to the point of them all being winners at the end, because there's something I want to mention there.
No, no, go ahead. We are going to stay. This is going to last until 7. However, last night we went a little bit over, and I will
Mhm.
stay as long as all your questions are
Okay.
answered
Yep.
after I stop the recording.
Yep. I just want to remember to circle back to your point, Anna. And just to hold me accountable to that one. Um, so a little bit about how Gym works. I've said this a few times throughout the presentation. The application is going to be due on the second Friday of November. That's every year. All right. It's actually 2 weeks after SHIP's national convention. All right. So if we're at the convention and you all see me, I want you to tell me about how fun it was to submit the gym application because everyone on this call should have submitted it already. We're here to be proactive. Um, and so applicants again must submit a minimum. Oh, actually, applicants must submit a minimum of 3 direct applications to gym universities by the department deadline or by January 15th. So this means after you apply for a gym fellowship, after you apply for the gym fellowship, you have to apply to at least 3 gym universities. But the beauty is you can apply to up to 10. All right, so that strengthens the likelihood of you securing a full fellowship when you apply, because you don't want to be selected by an employer and then not get into a school because you only applied to 3 schools. All right, so and remember, 90% of gym universities offer fee waivers. Something to take into consideration. But one piece that I didn't emphasize yet was you want to apply by your department's deadline or by January 15th. So if the department you're applying to, the deadline is January 10th, then you apply January 10th. But if their deadline is January 20th, you're going to apply January 15th. All right, so you're never applying later than January 15th. Industry interviews and the selection process is going to take place between January and April. So you're applying for the GEM fellowship in November. You should start hearing back around about interviews in January, and you should be hearing about your selection if you're selected in April, late April-ish. That's going to vary because again, there's 70 different companies that to choose from. Uh, and the university partners will provide a full fellowship. This means that you'll hear back from the universities regarding your fellowship by May 15th. Okay. And then the GEM fellowship internship will start the in the summertime. So if you're applying for the GEM fellowship that summer, that following summer where your internship should start, I can't give you a specific day when the internship is going to start because there's over 70 employer companies. So just know it's going to be sometime in the summer and to not book 6 cruises in the summertime because you need to be available. And so with that, that's going to be the end of the presentation. I'm willing to stick around past 7 because I just spoke a ton at you all. But for the folks who haven't had an opportunity to scan this prospect form, please do so because it's going to add you to the list of students that's enthusiastic about the fellowship, and you'll begin to hear questions. Excuse me, not questions. You'll begin to receive information about the fellowship. So I'll leave this up for a little while and
Yeah.
I'll begin answering questions.
Okay, hold on for a second. Let me
Mhm.
stop the recording. Thank you, Tim. Let me stop the recording. You will hear it that I stopped it. And now you can ask your question. Go ahead, Alexander.
Hello, thank you very much for amazing